¿Estamos listos para el segundo y último día de CITEK? No, a ver, va de nuevo porque la verdad es que creo que siguen dormidos o se enfiestaron de más. ¿Estamos listos para el segundo y último día de CITEK 2018? Ay, qué bonitos, qué bonitos. Pues bueno, ¿qué les parece si vamos arrancando? Porque ya tenemos aquí a nuestros ponentes. Vamos a hablar del Blockchain Panel. Son expertos en la nueva forma de intercambiar bienes. Son 3 personajes que están acá en el fondo. Salúdenlos. Ya nos están saludando, ahí están. Váyanse acercando aquí al escenario para darle la más cordial bienvenida al doctor Kant Miriyala, quien es emprendedor prolífero y energético. La pasión de Kant es ser mentor y asesorar a las nuevas tech startups, así como promover la adopción de la tecnología de cadena de bloques y tokens. Obtuvo su PhD en la Universidad de Illinois en Urbana Campaign, Estados Unidos, y comenzó su carrera en la investigación de software en Accenture. Paco.
Kant ha sido inversionista en etapas iniciales en varias empresas tecnológicas nuevas y también se ha desempeñado como asesor de Gravitant, ahora parte de IBM, y cofundador de Kintant, ahora parte de Capgemini. También ha participado en varios ICOs, entre ellos www.blocksale.io, www.verymy.mobi, www.sunmoneysolar y www.allrights.com.
También está con nosotros Sarup Suri, se desempeña como director de inversiones de Serracap Ventures, con más de 15 años de experiencia en la industria de la tecnología. Paco.
Es un entorno de operaciones globales, habiendo vivido y trabajado en 4 continentes. Actualmente se desempeña como asesor, observador y miembro de la junta directiva de varias empresas de tecnología de alto crecimiento como Absuba, Third Eye, OnePage, Deep Instinct, Fortscale, entre otros. También está en el consejo de junta de algunas firmas de capital de riesgo en etapa inicial, Ale.
Y finalmente Neil Harani, ingeniero de software del espacio de videojuegos, muy bien, que aplica sus conocimientos de gamificación y teoría de juegos para ayudar al mundo del activismo. Su enfoque más reciente es como activista y como inversor privado de Ángeles para Fair Cop, que es un movimiento global para ayudar y construir un mundo más justo y cooperativo. Les damos la más cordial bienvenida. Welcome to CITEK 2018.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I was trying to figure out if it is on. I think it is on.
I think yours.
You're good.
All right. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming in this morning. Moreover, thank you very much for that breakfast. I think we all 3 ate too much. But we're here to talk about one of the most talked about topics in technology today, which is also probably one of the least understood. Some dub it a fraud, some call it a game changer, and some call it a silent revolution. So we're here to talk about blockchain. From the introductions, you would have kind of gathered, we have 2 of our panelists from very, very diverse backgrounds approaching blockchain from very interesting perspectives. So we have the perspective of social activism over here and commercial growth and scalability with Dr. Kant over here. Through this panel and these 3 varying perspectives, we'll try and answer a few key questions for you, starting with what is blockchain, what can it really do, and I think most importantly, why you should care. So let's start with, I'd say, the most fundamental of all questions. What is blockchain and blockchain technologies? So Neil, if I can start with you to talk a little bit about what is blockchain.
So fundamentally, what blockchain is it's an unalterable distributed database. And by that, what I mean is it is where the data is dispersed over a large consensus. And it cannot be altered unless everyone agrees, or the majority agrees, that the new data coming in is valid.
Perfect. Dr. Kant, if I can put the same question to you.
Yeah, I would like to explain a block. Has anybody here heard about bitcoins? By a show of hands. Okay, a lot of you. Have any of you heard about the concept of blockchain? Raise your hand if you heard about blockchain. A much smaller number. Now, Bitcoin was based on the technology of blockchain. Blockchain is the underlying technology. Just like when you're driving a car, you have an internal combustion engine, am I right? Now, that was the technology inside the car. That same technology can be used in any car. Is that right? Right? So the same way, Bitcoin was built on a technology that my friend Neil here just explained to you. That technology is like the internal combustion engine that drives your car. Imagine taking the same engine and driving several other cars. And that's exactly as exciting as a blockchain technology is. Not only can it be used to power something like a Bitcoin, which means you can send money to each other without a bank in the middle. How many of you remember 20, 30 years ago, we needed a newspaper to communicate? If you wanted information from you, it goes to the newspaper, and from newspaper to everybody's house. That's called a centralized mechanism. Yes? Right? Now imagine a few years later you had the internet. How many of you use the internet? All of you use the internet. Now, to send a message from one person to the other, do you need a newspaper or a TV in the middle? No, you don't. You send messages directly from one to the other. Yes? Okay? So you remove the middle person. Imagine you can do that from internet for information. You go to an internet for payments. What if I can send money to somebody else without a government and a bank? Would that be cool? And that's what a blockchain does. But blockchain does that not just for money, but it can do for many other areas, which we will talk about, to enable direct peer-to-peer communications, transfer of value, without an intermediary. Okay? That's just my elaboration of what are the uses of blockchain.
Perfect, thank you. And I think from your definition, it's fair to say that blockchain today is in its nascent and early stages. As revolutionary as people think it's going to be, it's kind of what like the internet was back in the 1990s. Early stages, people knew it was going to be a revolution. They just didn't know how. And I'd say technologies like this, or revolutionary technologies like this, come from a basic philosophy or an underlying philosophy of human existence. So the second question I'd pose to the panel here is, what do you see as the underlying ethos that has given rise to something like blockchain? So Dr. Kant, if I can start with you on this.
Yeah. So the most exciting things that a blockchain enables, the ethos that it creates, again, I'm going to go back and use internet as an example, which Saurabh started off, because we all understand internet, and then I'm going to use that as an analogy for blockchain, right? Now, what happened in the beginning of the internet days? How did we all hear about internet? Some friends told us about internet, didn't they? Some friends told us about Google. And so by the word of mouth, we helped each other in getting onto internet and learning about it, yes? So that's how internet technology came about. The funny thing that happened was, when Bitcoin came around, it came around quietly in 2009. It was just rolled out among a bunch of, let's say, 10 or 20 people. And then slowly they started telling other people about it. And a lot of people started getting to know about Bitcoin. So is Bitcoin a currency? Yes. Is Bitcoin a community? Yes. Because until you know about Bitcoin and I know about Bitcoin and we both are using it, we cannot exchange a Bitcoin. I hope you're all understanding. So, but how was Bitcoin community built? It was built using the underlying technology of blockchain. So blockchain helps you build communities. One of the most important things that's overlooked many times is the fact that this technology enables to build communities. And these could be communities of programmers. It could be communities of people that are voting. Could be communities of people who are interested in health in a third world country, and many other things that my friend Neil here will explain to you.
Perfect. So moving over to you, Neil. So when we're talking about blockchain, and you mentioned a bit about Bitcoin as well, but if we see it from a standpoint of social activism, what do you see as the underlying ethos of blockchain in social activism?
Well, I feel that blockchain represents freedom from the system. So finally, we have a mechanism by which we don't need a central authority to ask for permission or to send data to and hope that the central authority doesn't corrupt that data and doesn't do things with their own agenda. So I think blockchain represents freedom from the system. So take banking, for example. Removing the central authority from making payments so that if I send money to Dr. Kant here, I don't need to send money to a bank or send money to a Western Union and have the Western Union send money to Dr. Kant. We both don't need to have bank accounts. We can send money directly to each other. And it's not just banking. There's several applications like Dr. Kant alluded to, which is, you can have provable fairness in many aspects of the way we lead our lives today, where we don't need a middle person. So,
I'm going to ask you to elaborate on that one point. You've made a very, I'd say, very strong statement that blockchain represents freedom in the ethos. Could you, for the audience here, explain a little bit more on why blockchain represents freedom?
So, in terms of, say, social applications, if we were to think about, say, something that we really require a lot more transparency and a lot more understanding into the inner mechanics of how it works, look at elections. So voting on elections. Now, this is probably a little bit controversial, as I'm not implying that anything's wrong with the current election process. But if you were to cast your vote in an election process today, you'd go to, you travel, you'd go to a ballot box, and you'd cast your vote. Now, if you were to do this with a blockchain, you would go ahead and you could vote from your own home, and you would cast your vote. And that vote would be a transaction. And that vote would be public. Everyone would be able to see this person voted for this candidate. And anyone across the world would be able to audit all of the votes. Now, you might think, well, isn't that a confidentiality breach? Well, no, because while they know that this person voted for this person, they don't know who this person is. You are represented by a string of letters and numbers called a hash. And that can change the way we think about voting on elections, for example. We can know in a provable way that these two candidates that are trying to get elected, they actually got the right number of votes that determined the winner. And what's nice is you can change your vote at the last minute if you wanted to. Say you heard a better argument from one of the other candidates, you could change your vote. And you'd be able to do it from the comfort of your own home. And everyone would know that the votes were authentic because they can audit the blockchain at any time. Everything's transparent.
Wow. Okay, so I'm going to move on now that we've covered a little bit on the background and the definition. To kind of provide this audience with a little more understanding, if I can move to some real-world applications of how blockchain is being used today. So Dr. Kant, if I can point to you from more of the commercial applications of blockchain that you see, again, understanding that it's in the nascent stages, but what are some of the real-world commercial applications you see in blockchain?
Great. Thank you, Saurabh. So I wanted to start off by telling you there are multiple unique characteristics of a blockchain. I want all of you to understand when you leave this session today, I want you to understand where can you use blockchain, okay? And I'm going to give you one or two examples. For example, you can remove the intermediaries. We all talked about it. Can you remove the bank for money transactions? Can you remove the government for making money? So that means you're removing an intermediary. You're all understanding with me? So that's one application of blockchain, is to remove the intermediary. The second example is, we covered again, building communities. So that's the second example. You can use blockchain to build communities. And those can be communities of people. Maybe there is a community of people that are entrepreneurs. Maybe there's a community of people or businesses. One of the examples I'm going to use is CITEK. CIVIC. Civic is a company that was started by a South African, moved to US. His name is Vinnie Lingam, and he was one of the early adopters of blockchain. And what he created was a community of enterprises. So there is one enterprise on which you have your identity, your name. In US, we have something called social security number, maybe your fingerprint, your identity verification. Imagine that is on the blockchain. So it's a community, but there's a third application of blockchain, which is safekeeping of your data. That means nobody else can tamper with your data. You have a credit card company or an e-commerce company with all of your credit cards, and somebody hacks into it and you lose your data. That is very risky, wouldn't you say? Now imagine your data is safe on a blockchain. So those are the three things. There are many more applications. I just wanted you to remember removing the intermediaries, building communities, and keeping your data safe. Now, if you take the second and the third one, building communities of businesses and keeping your data safe, you get something called identity verification, right? And once you have your identity verification on the blockchain, you get a company called Civic. Now, what does that do? It partners with all the companies where you go to a bank, you need to verify your identity, right, before you get a bank account. Before you buy an airline ticket, you need to verify your identity. You're using your passport or your college ID. Even here, you have to register. If you're doing international travel, you need to produce your passport as a ID verification. Do you all agree with me? So these are several forms of ID, and you could easily lose your passport. Many other things could happen. But imagine you have your identity on the blockchain. All that you need is your smartphone, and wherever you go, whether you're booking your ticket online, you can use the identity, and the same identity you can use when you are at the airport or at the bank. So that is one identity that is secure on the blockchain, and the cost is minimized because you don't need as many people. You don't need hundreds of people at the security at the airport, for example, verifying identities of people when it can be done almost electronically. So that's one example of an commercial application of blockchain.
Perfect. And Neil, if I could move to you and talk about certain social applications of the blockchain that you see in the real world today.
So, well, one example I gave was the elections. Another example I would say, well, it's just like a hybrid of social and commercial, would be, say, gaming on the blockchain. Now, if you were to take a simple game like rock, paper, scissors, okay? And say I was playing rock, paper, scissors with Saurabh here, and I played the move rock, and this is online. And right now, the way it would work is I would send that move to a central server, and central server would wait for him to make his move, and then the central server would be the deciding authority on who won. Now, if you were to use blockchain for something like that, I would make my move, and there would be a smart contract between us. And the only way my move would be revealed is if the conditions of the smart contract were met, as in Saurabh here has to make his move, and then both moves are revealed. Now, you could see why that's important, because in the first example, central authority deciding that, I could have a friend working at the central server, and the central server could be waiting for Saurabh's move first, and Saurabh could do rock, for example, and I know this, and I would do paper, and I would beat Saurabh pretty easily. So you could have provable fairness. You could have a way in which nobody could question the validity of the underlying system. They know that it's provably fair.
Perfect. So moving on to it.
Well, actually, I have a question for you, Saurabh. For these budding entrepreneurs out here, in terms of blockchain investing, what do you look for when you look to invest in blockchain projects?
Now that's literally the $1.3 billion question. There's been about $1.3 billion invested in early stage venture capital and entrepreneurs in 2018 alone. Before I ask the question, I just want to kind of look at the audience and say, how many of you would actually like to be an entrepreneur, start your own company or do something on your own? in anything. Wow. Now that's a very large number. Now, we give these talks all over the place. That's a huge number. The interesting part is that if you look at the world today, or the economy today, right? Entrepreneurs are literally the backbone of a knowledge economy today, okay? In fact, entrepreneurs are now the new superpower. What governments used to do before, go to space, create energy, whatever, is all being done by entrepreneurs. SpaceX, first private mission up there. You've got nuclear power being developed by entrepreneurs. With that, we see this whole connection, and I love the motto even at CITEK of connecting global citizens. Blockchain is enabling that. When folks like me look at investing in the world of blockchain, there are a few key items that we look at. Number one, and probably the most important, what is the problem you're trying to solve? It's probably the easiest question to ask and the hardest question to answer. So we see a lot of companies and a lot of guys saying, I can do this and I can do that. But here's the core question. What is the problem you're trying to solve? The second thing we look at from an investment perspective is what kind of team is there? Does the team have the passion, the energy, and the understanding to solve that problem? And after those two conditions are met, does this team, does this entrepreneur also understand the downsides? With these three things met, right now, blockchain is one of the most exciting areas to actually invest in. Like I said, compare it to the internet of the 90s or the early 90s. The possibilities are limitless. What we're looking for is entrepreneurs, and I see the large majority here, is entrepreneurs who are looking to actually solve that problem. Now, having said that, I know we're running a little bit out of time, but if I could ask each of you over here, if you had to leave this audience with something for them to take away from this discussion, something to think about when it comes to the area of blockchain, what would that be? So Neil, if I can maybe start with you and say, what is that takeaway you'd like the folks to go?
Well, you could start with a much broader view first. As I was talking about earlier, that blockchain, in my view, actually represents freedom from the system. And so if you were to look at us being in a cooperative network, if we could all cooperate and work together, so think about working on our own entrepreneurship projects, but working not in silo, but working with each other. How do you do that in an interconnected web in such a way where we're creating a hive mind amongst this entire group? We'd be able to solve problems of any level of complexity just with this room alone. And so what I would say is think of how you solve the macro view problem first. What is the overall problem you're trying to solve as opposed to the micro level problems? And yeah, go from there.
Dr. Kant, if I can ask the same question to you.
Thank you. This is my favorite question, so I'm very excited to talk about this with all of you. The point I wanted to make was there are two ways of looking at possible opportunities for you. In my opinion, this is like being in internet 20, 25 years ago. How many of you, if you knew internet was going to be trillions of dollars and you were there 20, 25 years ago, you would do everything you can to make your own business happen, be entrepreneurs, and create your wealth? Why would you not do that, right? So in our opinion, that's where we are today with blockchain. I'll give you a couple of quick reasons why. Number one is, how many of you heard of Uber or Airbnb? Anybody heard of Uber or Airbnb? In the last 10 years, they have been the two of the most successful companies. Each one is worth roughly $40, $50 billion. Add them up, you get 100 billion. Double that, that's 200 billion is the current market cap of blockchain companies in the last 9 years. Do you agree that it's growing like crazy? And it is supposed to be going through crypto winter. This is the worst time for blockchain. And it has $200 billion valuation in the last 9 years. I want you to think about that. The second thing, how many of you helped build Google? You know Google, how many of you heard of Google? Your links are indexed by Google. How many of you know that? How many of you know that Google's algorithm is using all of your data and links to create the next trillion-dollar company? How many of you are using Facebook? How many of you are posting your pictures on Facebook that Facebook is making money from? Does anybody know that? How many of you would like to change that? Next time you create a business on blockchain, every time somebody posts a photo that somebody else is looking at, you are getting paid. How many of you like a business that does that? Every time there is somebody that's indexing your links, you're getting paid a portion of the ads. How many of you like that? So that is the underlying power of what blockchain can do for all of you. That does not mean you go and build the next Facebook and the next Google, because those problems have already been solved. You look for new problems where there is pain, which are not solved, and find good blockchain solutions. Does that make sense? That's the first thing I encourage you to look at is what are the problems that you can see that nobody else can see because of where you are and who you are, and can you solve that using a new technology called blockchain? The second point I want to make is what are the careers for which you can prepare over the next few years? Here is my recommendation. There are people who will be amongst you, there will be people who will become marketers. You do marketing for blockchain. That's a huge opportunity. There are people like the activists that want to build communities. That's a huge opportunity for many of you here. The PR people, the marketing people, the technology guys. Some of you are geeks like me that likes to program. You want to build blockchains. Trust me, it is much easier to build blockchains than you know, than you imagine. You can easily take courses online and learn how to be a programmer, right? And you have a global platform. This is the first time Silicon Valley has gotten disrupted. Before, all the startups were created in Silicon Valley, but not the blockchain companies. They're in Russia, they're in Dubai, they're in Singapore, they're in India. This is a global disruption. There's absolutely the most even playing field you can ever see. And my suggestion is, I don't know what is the career that's going to be good for you, but I can tell you for a fact, and the three of us are in alignment here, for the next 20, 30 years, this is going to be a big technology. So how do you go about it? My suggestion is I hope we got all of you excited enough to jump into this and start learning. If all you do after this is get into it and start learning, can you listen to some podcasts online? Can you read some articles online? Can you watch some YouTube videos on this? Can you devote an hour a day for the next 1 or 2 years, and you will be among the experts in this whole country. Thank you.
So much, Dr. Kant. I think with that, we just have about 5 minutes left. So I'll kind of look at the audience. If there's a question that we could take from the audience or answer through this panel. Oh, we have one there. Do we have an extra mic? Where'd they go? I'll tell you what, I'll give you mine. Here you go.
Good morning. Hi, my name's Adam Tafazoli. I enjoyed your conference very much. Regarding society and what they've thought about crypto or blockchain and all of this has really been based on fear, especially in December 2017 and everything being, don't invest into crypto because it's a fraud. This is obviously because government always wants to control money and the way we move. So now that it's been pretty much a year since that, and Google, Facebook actually banned crypto ads because they wanted people not to be, getting in depth with their credit card buying Bitcoin. But now that it's not banned and we're kind of getting into a point in time where society begins to see blockchain and crypto as an opportunity, why is not institutional money flowing in to this, even though a case like Gemini with the dollar has now backed it in the United States? What is institutional money waiting for, and why is it not happening, or when do you predict it will start happening?
I think this is the perfect panel for you to ask that question. So, Dr. Kant, if I can have you start, and I'll move to you, Neil. I'll represent the institution.
Can you all hear me? Oh my God, sorry. Great question, and he would be the right person to answer that, but I will hypothesize, right? Like I said, it's about the challenge of early adoption and the challenges that are there in the technology. Blockchain technology is not perfect yet. It's very difficult to use. If you see a string of digits, that's money. It's hard to imagine that the string of digits is money. and that's really representing the money. So it's a very complicated thing to understand in the beginning, just like internet was in the day one when you had to use a dial-up modem. I have to do what? I have to dial up, and then I have to connect to this internet. So it was complicated. All technologies begin that way. And then same thing with security. Security is a major problem. A lot of money is being stolen. That's the second challenge. And then the speed of transactions. If everybody gets on to these blockchains, they become very slow today. So that there are 3 or 4 fundamental technology problems, which is something, that is the reason we should all be excited. There are so many major problems to be solved before this can become a real technology. Many people predicted the doom of internet because it would keep crashing, because you could not play a video, because the dial-up modem would keep crashing. But the nature of humanity is when we find something that is good, we will keep improving it and improving it and improving it. It keeps getting better. Even today, the internet is still not perfect. Am I right? It's still slow sometimes for all of you, right? But it is still a thing. That's what we believe. The blockchain will. It's a matter of time before institutional money will start flowing in. There is some amount of institutional money that is already flowing in, but it is not flowing in the form of ICOs, initial coin offerings, because those are suspect. They're flowing in more into blockchain-based companies as equity. That's my take. Over to you, Saurabh.
Before I give you the institutional answer to that, I want to take the social answer from Neil as well.
Oh, thank you, Saurabh. I think that, so from institutional money coming into the space, I would say there is some institutional money that I know is coming in. Some is coming into more darker applications that you know, I would say that I know that it's happening, but I don't want to say that I have proof necessarily. But for example, when you take Bitcoin, for example, and I remember back in 2013 when they finally started bringing options into Bitcoin. That means that now you can bet on the price going up and the price going down. And so what actually ended up happening is funds started forming to to buy long options and start pumping the price of Bitcoin so that the long options, 10x options, would actually go up significantly. And then what happens when options go up? You see the momentum of how many of the regular public actually go into the currency, start buying in, and then when you feel like the momentum's dying down, you go ahead and you sell off your your long options, you buy short options, and then you dump your Bitcoins. Now, what is that going to do? That's going to create extreme instability within the markets. And those actors that are creating this volatility are going to get stronger. They're going to have bigger funds. And really what they're doing is they have a fiduciary duty to the investors that invest in their funds to continue the cycle of creating these ripple effects within the markets. And that's the thing, is that you have a technology, which is, you have blockchain technology, which facilitates currency transfer without, or asset transfer without a middle person. That is separate from the markets. And the thing about the markets is it's this invisible kind of aspect of digital currencies that I haven't really heard very many people talk about, is that it creates this, I mean, you have to start thinking about the ecosystem. What kind of actors are there within this ecosystem, and how do they cooperate with each other? How many bad actors there are within the ecosystem, and how is this ecosystem being shaped? And so there are a lot of things to consider before we think about when institutional money will come in, other than the aspects that I've spoken about.
So I didn't know if you wanted so many answers to your question, but it's interesting because you've got the real world commercial answer, you've got the social answer. I'll give you a very short institutional answer. There is a huge difference in an institutional mind between Bitcoin or cryptocurrency and blockchain. Blockchain is the underlying technology. Cryptocurrency is one of the applications of blockchain. Institutional money is flowing in a huge way into blockchain. Like I said, last year alone, there was $1.3 billion pumped into early stage companies on blockchain. It is estimated in 2019 that that figure will cross $6.5 billion in just a year. the number of companies approaching blockchain are set to increase 400%. 80% of them are outside of the United States. So it's flowing, but I do want to create that differentiation between blockchain and crypto. Crypto, unfortunately, has gone the way of shady stock markets in certain ways, but it will rebalance. But blockchain's here to stay, is our approach. With that, I'll move to the next question if we have any other questions. We have one out there. Oh, and we have the
It's
gentleman.
not working out. There it is. Hello, my name is Marcelino. I was wondering if you could give us resources where we can learn about Bitcoin, as you said, maybe a website, a book.
Absolutely. Dr. Kant, I'll let you take that question.
I'll just give you two resources. A good place to start is to read Andreas Antonopoulos' books, Internet of Money 1 and 2. That would be a good place to start. And Laura Shin is an amazing podcaster. She has a podcast called Unchained. I would encourage you to start there and start listening to Unchained podcasts. If you go to Medium and type blockchain, you will get a bunch of great articles on blockchain as well.
Awesome. We have one question right there. Oh no. Yeah.
Hello, good morning.
While you're getting the mic, I'll just go with his question and come right to you.
Okay.
Yeah, go.
In your opinion, which cryptocurrency will be mass adopted and why?
Now you're asking for speculations.
No. It's just, I'm curious.
Okay, Neil, I'll let you start with the answer or a diversion to that question.
I'm gonna choose diversion here. So whatever that cryptocurrency is, it's going to be. We need to think about the markets first. We need to think about how the ecosystem is being shaped, and how we can and what is the end goal of this cryptocurrency. So for mass adoption, you need stability. Well, what is a currency? A currency is a medium of exchange. It's a trusted medium of exchange where the value doesn't fluctuate so much that it's $2,000 one day and $1,000 the next and $5,000 the day after, right? I mean, that's very hard for people to build a circular economy around. And so what I would say is whatever that cryptocurrency is that makes it, it's going to be a currency that focuses on stable growth. So yeah, that's my answer.
I'll give you a slight twist. If you're looking to invest in a cryptocurrency or an ICO or whatever else, one good metric to watch out for is what is that based on? What is the fundamental product, service, piece that the cryptocurrency or the value of the cryptocurrency is based on? Why is Bitcoin so volatile? Because it is based on the fundamental of, I mean, when Bitcoin started, it was a beautiful thing. It was based on decentralization. We don't want the banks. We don't want this. We should be able to control. He mentioned an amazing thing. Then came options. The minute you had options on Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency world became pure speculation. I wanted more than you, so I'm driving the price up. That is not based on a fundamental. It's not based on a commodity or a service. So if you guys are going to want to invest in crypto, look at what's underlying over there. That gets to what he says about sustainability. Dr. Kant, because I know this is a very important question, I'd want 2 minutes and your opinion on it.
Yeah, first the disclaimer is none of us are investment advisors. So that would be an extremely bad idea for us to take our advice from this panel and start buying some things. So having said that disclaimer, we have proven that the first one that gets big fast can succeed. Yeah, there was Yahoo, but it was Google that made it. So you want to keep that cautionary thing in your mind. But at the same time, Amazon was the first e-commerce company that made it. Bitcoin has its brand. And when you look at Venezuelan Bolivar and its devaluation that happened, people were backing up to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's use cases are increasing. So we have a feeling that that might be an underlying currency that will power this entire ecosystem. So that's something that we believe in. At the same time, after the crash of 2000, came all these current companies that you have, Facebook and Google and all of that, that came a few years later out of the ashes. So my suspicion is some of the biggest and the best companies in blockchain are yet to come. While we cannot tell you the names of those because we don't know, but some of the common sense characteristics that you should be looking at is don't go after hype. Are these useful? Are the products out in the market? Are people using them? Are they generating revenues? Are they making profits? Are they scaling? All the common sense criteria of a good business. If you can apply them to the blockchain companies that you're looking at, you will still catch them. Even if you catch them a year late, you'll catch them pretty quick, because imagine investing in any of these companies like Amazon and Google after 1 or 2 years after they started. You would still do extremely well. That's my take.
Thank you. I know there was, yes, please.
Ahí.
Hello.
Yeah.
Well, we are teachers and we want to know what we need to do with our students to prepare them to these new tendencies.
That's a phenomenal question. Dr. Kad, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, I'm a teacher myself, so I love that question. As we all know, we cannot teach until we learn ourselves. The most important thing is for all of you to get educated. Start with those podcasts, those books, and so on. As teachers, it is our responsibility to educate ourselves. I would sincerely, I mean, if you're as excited about this technology as we are, you should jump into it and start learning it. Allocate 1 or 2 hours every day to educate yourself. The second thing I would do is start teaching them as soon as you're learning, and let the whole class, the whole ethos is community, as Neil was saying. Let the whole class become learners. Can you make learning collaborative? Can each one of them learn along with you and explain to each other what is possible, come up with ideas? And it is literally easy. Almost all blockchain projects are open source. So students from your course can literally download the technology and roll out an entire token for the class. And you can do things like that, more practical, hands-on, and it is so much fun when they can all do it. So that's my suggestion is, number 1, learn yourself. Number 2, make it collaborative. Number 3, actually build the projects, because it's so easy to do it with open source code.
I'm going to give you one more aspect to that. Neil, if I can go to you. So the teachers want to know, I think your question was, how do you go about teaching blockchain? I'm going to change that slightly for Neil and say, Neil, if you had an option, what would you like teachers to tell their students from a social aspect of blockchain?
Well, so one direction I would go is the complete macro shift. So think about how we evolved as human beings. We evolved as human beings to cooperate with one another. And sometime down the line, we kind of fell by the waywards. But I think that cooperation is the key for us to all succeed. And especially in this space, with blockchain technology, we have this technology that now allows us to cooperate at a level we weren't able to cooperate before. So encourage working together to solve problems. And blockchain facilitates that. In terms of resources, as Dr. Kant mentioned, there are many resources on the internet. I would say Coursera actually has a really good course on blockchain, an intro to blockchain. And it's an amazing course. I would say start there. But think about how the ecosystem is shaped as this technology grows. Think of it as a sociology experiment. There's so many aspects to blockchain beyond the technology aspect of it. Sociology, game theory, these are subjects that I would say that matter a lot if you want to understand the impact that blockchain technology has on an entire ecosystem. So yeah, I would say think about the breadth and depth of what the students are learning. Game theory is one of those very important topics, but very important subjects, but it's very rarely talked about in the space. And yeah.
Thank you. I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Any more questions from the audience? Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. I have a question about, you were mentioning blockchain and the use in digital marketing. Can you elaborate more on that and how you think blockchain is going to transform digital marketing in the next few years?
Dr. Kant, do you want to take that?
Right. So the idea is to deconstruct the process. I'll give you an example of Steemit. We have all heard about blogging for a long time, right? Except not all bloggers actually could create income. So they developed an application called Steemit, and then they divided the process. They broke it down into people that are doing different parts of it. Some people are writing these articles. Some people are distributing them, promoting these articles. Some people are reading these articles and liking them and commenting on them. So they found out what are the elements of this ecosystem of blogging, broke it down, found the various actors and what they did, and figured out who should we reward with Steemit tokens so that people get motivated to write more articles that are good, promote more articles, read more articles. So the various activities. That is the blockchain of Steemit. And why do I tell you that? You do the same exact thing for digital marketing. You take the process of digital marketing and you break it down into what are you marketing, where are you marketing, how do you measure the marketing, how is revenue generated. So once you break it down into the ecosystem of players and what are the activities that you want to promote for these people, and also what are the activities you want to penalize. If somebody is a bad actor, you want to penalize them. And that's how you design an ecosystem for marketing using a blockchain, for example.
Perfect. I think we can maybe take, oh, okay, I think we're completely out of time. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias.